To begin with it, Penji, we have been talking about mental health, but we really need to understand what exactly is mental health.
Hanji, very good question. So, mental health simply refers to, I guess, the health of our minds or our sense of wellness. And I guess you could say that we have good mental health when we feel settled in ourselves, we feel able to achieve certain goals and life tasks that are important to us. We generally, a good person with good mental health is generally free from kind of extensive worry or a lot of sorrow. And then on the other spectrum, you've got somebody who we could say has poor mental health. And I'm sure that many of us have all been there, including myself, where we do sometimes feel riddled with worry and anxiety and fear, and find ourselves in, I guess, great emotional turmoil. And we fluctuate between good and poor mental health throughout our lives, depending on challenges and things that come up. So when we think about mental health, some of us think, oh, that's just for people who have mental health problems and mental health disorders. But actually, we all have mental health because we all have minds.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But isn't physical health enough for our well-being? And is there any connection between our mental health and our physical health?
Yes, so our physical health is indeed very important. We all know how we feel when we are struggling with an illness. Even something like the flu can have a bad impact on, I guess, a challenging impact on our mental health, and long-term physical illnesses. But actually, if we think about it, in spite of anything else, our physical status, our circumstances, the house that we have, the car that we have, anything that the friendships, the social groups, if our mental health is not in a good place, then we struggle to enjoy any of that and benefit from any of that. So even with a good, strong physical body, if our mental health is poor, then we're not able to experience happiness and take part in things that we want to take part in the day to day. And sorry, the second part of your question was.
Is there any connection between our mental health and physical health? So, like, can we say that if we are not in good mental health state, we won't be in a good physical health state as well?
Absolutely, there's such a connection. And scientists didn't used to think that the mind and the body were connected. So you would have separate treatments for the physical body, for physical illnesses, and separate treatment for the mental illnesses. But now we know so much that they're interconnected. So if you, for a moment now, think about something that is stressful or some turmoil that you're in, that immediately has an impact on the tension in our body. We find ourselves tensing up, shoulders hunching, and prolonged periods of tension in the body can lead to serious physical illness. So when we're realizing more and more that the state of mind that we have can directly impact on the body and vice versa. You know, when we're not in good health physically, when we have hormonal issues, that also affects the mind. So they're both very interlinked. And there's a lot of science behind this.
That is quite an interesting fact.
Yeah.
So usually we think that, okay, if we are in a good physical health, we don't really need to care about mental health. We're good to go.
That's it.
So, we see that there are so many barriers, just the one we discussed, like taking more care about our physical health than mental health. So there are so many barriers into to looking after our mental health. And worldwide, specifically in India, we have this stigma for psychological issues. Since you've been working rigorously with Sikh community and Punjabi community, as per your experience and expertise, do you think that somehow Sikhs or Punjabis they are more vulnerable to this stigma?
I think absolutely there are issues around the story of mental illness in our community. There is a culture of shame and blame around mental illness. The shame comes from this sense of if there's something wrong, you shouldn't speak to anybody. Kisi nu dasti da nahi, you know, when there's something wrong, lokan nu nahi dasna. And then there's the blame, you know. There is this perception that mental health illnesses come from, there's all sorts of perceptions, but maybe some kind of black magic or bad garam, or even people say use it as a kind of a punishment. You haven't done enough baths, so that's why you have mental health problems. So there's all this culture of shame and blame. And I think that makes it very difficult for people to open up and to accept that we are all capable of having mental health problems and difficulties with our mental health. So that's a big factor. And then you've got men, the roles that men hold in our culture and society as the protectors, as the supporters, as the head of the household. You know, we can't show that we are vulnerable. And then you have these phrases, "Sher banke," carry on, you know. And one of the saddest things is that suicide in males, 75% of suicides are in males. Because and I think that's worldwide. So there's this sense of males worldwide struggling with vulnerability. They're not able to speak to anybody, and they see suicide as the only option. You know. Yeah.
Especially, what do you think? How can we actually deal with it?
I think we have a big job to do. And I think some of the work is already happening, you know, with conversations like these. Increasingly, the youth, because it's the older generation that have been so accustomed to holding these views, these outdated views about mental health, that as the youth get more and more involved in the Gurdwara committees, in doing presentations, setting up organizations, we are beginning to spread the message of mental health and the normality of mental health, which is that we all struggle. So other ways that we can deal with it is thinking about ourselves. What do we think about mental health? Can we deep down say that actually we can understand that mental health can happen to anybody? How do we respond to somebody when they come to us with a problem? Do we perceive them as having a very severe problem that they need to go and, you know, that we need to just put them away somewhere or ignore? Or can we open our hearts and arms up to them and say, let me listen to you. Let me listen to you without judgment. So I think it's on many levels that we need to start thinking about opening our minds up, you know, when it comes to mental health.
So if I put it this way, like acceptance is the first step to this.
Yes, acceptance of that it exists, that we struggle.
Right.
On an individual level and on a group level. Acceptance and acceptance that we struggle and that it's okay to struggle. That it's not a shameful thing to be struggling with anxiety or low mood.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so true. Especially while talking about this, there's another very important issue that comes up here. Even if we, get over this stigma and we really wish to talk to someone, who actually to approach?
That's a very important topic to discuss because the way I think about it is that, you know, professionals are there, professional systems and bodies are there, but I think the first place to go to is to somebody close to you, somebody that you feel can offer a safe space without judgment to just allow you to express yourself. Because in our community, women are conditioned not to express. You know, if you feel anger, no, you shouldn't express anger. If you feel sadness, no, you shouldn't express that. You should keep it to yourself. You are not a proper Sikh or Punjabi woman if you are emotional, if you have emotions, if you cry, if you express anger. So the problem is there. So trying to find a safe space where we can feel and express without judgment is probably a very powerful part of the healing process. And sometimes that is enough. It is enough to feel heard and to feel valued and to be accepted. But there are many cases, of course, when it's not enough, when we need to reach out for professional support. So in the UK, we have the NHS, the National Health System, and they have psychology teams within that. So you can go to your general practitioner, tell them that you're struggling, and they can put you in touch with somebody who can offer therapy. And they also have private therapists. For myself, I work privately. And the sad thing is that because the reason why I'm working privately is because most Punjabi and Sikh women don't go to the GP and they won't go and see somebody who is...
They don't, yes.
Yeah, they won't. And they want to maybe see, a lot of Indian women want to see somebody else who is Indian, but somebody that can understand.
Absolutely.
the way that they have been brought up and the pressures that they have had on them. So, but in terms of reaching out, I mean, Benji, you know probably more about what's going on in India and what sources of support there are for women in India.
So we similarly, like the NHS there, we have RCI, the Rehabilitation Council of India, which kind of provides the license to practitioners. So they have their particular courses, their training courses, which one has to go through, which would then, by after which a person would be eligible to hold a license. And this is one request I usually make to everyone, that if you seek professional help, please make sure that the person is licensed, so that there are, you see, Panji, we face major issue of malpractices here.
Okay.
So it is very important to see that if the person has the capacity, is in the capacity to really help us, to help us in a proper, in a scientific manner, that would eventually help us, that would eventually help us deal with the situation that we are in.
Yes, definitely.
So that is one, right.
I'm thinking on that point, exactly. How do we know that the person here is going to be able to support us? And part of that is actually going with our instinct. You know, often we see the doctor as the expert or the psychologist as the expert, but within mental health, it's not like that. If we get a feel that this person is supportive, empathic, and can support us through, we should go with that feeling. Whereas if we feel that actually this person doesn't seem to be helping or isn't providing a safe space for us, then that is a warning sign for us, and we should find somebody else. Not everybody is going to be able to support you in the same way or in the way that you need.